In this video, we're reviewing Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and giving you the key to a deviously advanced cocktail I've named the Entity. Today, on the Martini Shot. Hello and welcome to the Martini Shot, home of movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails. My name is Brandon. Before we get into the review, let's instill a benevolent, cold AI into drink form through a cocktail I've named the Entity. And hey, if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to leave a like and hit subscribe if you'd like to help support the channel. This cocktail, if you choose to accept it, is inspired by the rogue AI that threatens the world in the film known as the Entity. It's a calculated piece of hardware capable of adapting and being nearly omnipresent, usually embodied by a black hole surrounded by blue synapses. The cocktail's appearance is inspired by the Entity, but the bold assortment of flavors represents the dangerous scenarios the IMF crew constantly finds themselves in. This cocktail utilizes both tequila and mezcal, along with the spice of habanero and the sweetness of blueberries. If you wish to proceed, then grab your shaker. This message will self-destruct in 1 second. All right, first we're gonna start with our blueberry flavoring. And to do that, we're gonna be using some of Rose's blueberry syrup. You can make your own blueberry syrup, but I was looking for something that's a little bit more blue. So feel free to make your own if you can't find this, but we're gonna go ahead and give this a try. And we're gonna go ahead and do ½ ounce. Next up is our freshly squeezed lime juice. We're gonna be doing 1 ounce. Next, we're bringing the heat with some spicy habanero simple syrup, made the same way you would make a homemade simple syrup, but also throwing in 2 diced habaneros. And you're gonna be doing ½ ounce. And now for our alcohol, this is where it starts to get a little fun. First, we're gonna start with our mezcal for a smoky complexion. We're gonna be doing 3/4 ounces. And then for our main spirit, we're gonna be using tequila, but not just any tequila. We're using some black tequila. So this is a homemade black tequila. There are commercially available bottles of black colored tequila out in the market, but I found these pretty much impossible to find in any store. So I went ahead and made it myself. I used a couple different things to achieve this color. First off is black sesame seeds. I went ahead and infused the tequila with those first. And then I also used a little bit of black sanding sugar to really kind of push it into the dark night kind of color. So I do both instead of just the black sanding sugar. Basically, if I'm just gonna use the black sanding sugar, it's really going to over sweeten the tequila. And the black sesame seeds themselves don't really get it to a nice black color. It's more of a brownish color. But using both of them in conjunction makes sure it doesn't lean too heavily one way or the other and reaches this nice dark complexion. And we're gonna do 1½ ounces of the tequila. And next, to really build out the flavor profile, we're gonna be adding 2 dashes of Angostura bitters. All right, let's get ice in our shaker and shake to chill. All right, now we can go ahead and strain that into a rocks glass, throw a little bit of ice in there, and finally go ahead and garnish with a few blueberries. And there you go, now you have the Entity. And yeah, there's a lot of flavors kind of going on here. First thing that you taste is the smokiness of the mezcal, which then transitions into a very nice pairing from that habanero simple syrup. And it has a really nice spice coming through, which also pairs with the biting of the tequila, which you also get a little bit of. And then on the back end is when you start to get some of the sweetness, some of the tartness from that blueberry syrup, as well as the lime juice. So yeah, I love the transition into different flavors inside this cocktail. I think everything is working in harmony very, very well. It's incredibly tasty and absolutely unique looking. So yeah, honestly, I might have to start dyeing more alcohol black. I really like how these drinks kind of come out. Now that we have our drink, let's dive headfirst into the review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. The messiah of blockbuster movies and Scientology, Tom Cruise, is back once again with another attempt to save cinema. Despite your hang-ups on Cruise as a person, there's no doubt he cares deeply for his craft and wants to see the theater experience prevail. And damn if he hasn't been giving it his all. Last year's Top Gun Maverick shocked the hell out of me, finding a way to not only improve upon the original, but to modernize the concept with underlying themes that reflect the state of big budget movies in general. It's a film about the grit and unrelenting drive of the old guard finding a way to exist in the modern age while still staying true to what they know and love. And wouldn't you believe it, Cruise has returned with yet another film reflecting on the current state of the industry. And if you've been keeping up with the recent Writers and Actors Guild strikes, it couldn't have came at a more pivotal time. Dead Reckoning Part 1 continues the long-running franchise's penchant for high-octane espionage, complete with many of the calling cards the franchise is known for. Cruise and company are back for more stellar fights, chases, and stunts, all against the backdrop of an encroaching future led by a calculated, empathyless artificial intelligence. For 2.5 hours, I was surprisingly consistently engrossed in the conflict, even if portions of it were weighed down by occasional poor writing and lack of envelope pushing. But even with it potentially being one of the weaker ones from the past 4 entries, it's still better than most modern action films regardless. This time around, world-class super spy Ethan Hunt is tasked with retrieving a highly sought-after 2-piece key. What it unlocks no one fully knows, but it is directly connected to a program referred to as the Entity, a seemingly omnipresent AI that's quickly growing more and more intelligent, threatening to alter the world and what we know as the truth. What does it mean for Hunt and his band of rogues? It means bomb defusals, impeccable running form, lifelike imposter masks, double crosses, fake outs, and as expected, an insane crew stunt that genuinely steals your breath. I can't really say there's anything different or unique for the characters this time around, but they're still genuinely fun to watch. Cruise's Ethan Hunt still loves his country more than the 3 beautiful women entangled in his mission, and while his story isn't anything all that new, he still manages to nail the intensity of each situation and even injects a good bit of humor into a lot of the impossible scenarios he finds himself in. Returning faces like Ving Rhames' Luther and Simon Pegg's Benji are still a delight to see, even if the characters don't really have any emotional stakes or progression to really move their own stories along. I also feel like Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa was done a little dirty here. Without going into spoiler territory, I'm fine with the direction they took the character in. I just wish it felt more rewarding for the character or actually had a significant emotional impact on the story, like the film thinks it does. Where I think the film does excel is its introduction of new characters, who end up being great additions that add fun and intrigue into the story. Haley Atwell's Grace is a self-fulfilling cat burglar that gets roped into Hunt's shenanigans, serving as both a rival and a semi-unwilling collaborator for the main cast. While some of her decisions are frustrating to watch, they're rooted in realism for a character just looking to disappear and go back to picking pockets rather than fighting government conspiracies. Then there's Issei Morales as the film's antagonist, Gabriel, a devoted acolyte to the Entity shaped as a ghost from Ethan's past come back to haunt him. Morales' suave menace is a lot of fun, always seeming to be one step ahead of everyone and possessing a shroud of all-knowingness thanks to his connection with the AI. The film frames him as impossible to best, so it makes it all the more satisfying when Ethan and his team work to find a way to get around him. Perhaps my favorite addition is Pomme Clementif as Paris, a French assassin working under Gabriel. She doesn't say a whole lot, but her presence as a maniacal, honor-bound force of chaos is a hell of a lot of fun to watch. As to be expected from any of these films, the action is top-notch. There's some pretty decent hand-to-hand fight scenes, with my favorite being a 2-on-1 assault in a narrow alley, but I think the biggest draw for these films has to be the stunt work. The heavy use of practical filmmaking does wonders for these sequences, giving these scenes the necessary authenticity needed to properly translate the danger to the audience while also better hiding instances of CGI. Comparing this to a film I just reviewed, Dial of Destiny, it's like night and day. If you were to compare these films' respective train sequences, even though they take place in different contexts and settings, you can tell which is more convincing. And the film is chock full of these, from a yellow buggy car chase through Rome to a highly publicized motorcycle cliff jump. It shows the crew really goes above and beyond to try to deliver on that movie magic, putting the work into making the impossible as authentic as possible without relying on a computer to generate the sequences for them. And speaking of computer generation, that leads into the overarching theme of the film. The villain is no longer simply a person or a country, but an artificial intelligence with the power to infiltrate world governments and subtly manipulate the masses through a variety of means. It's by no means a new concept, but I do think it's never felt as poignant because of the day and age it's released in. AI has been a hot topic for the past few years, and while it's led to some genuine fun like those SpongeBob covers of songs,
The only thing I've ever groomed is my 2 Persian cats. I'm not a groomer.
it's also led to a terrifying uncertainty of what's real and what isn't through things like deepfakes. AI is even threatening the film industry, with writers and actors now rebelling against Hollywood to keep from having their jobs replaced by an algorithm in order to save a couple bucks. In the film, the threat of the AI is broadcasted not through killer robots or nuclear codes, but from things such as voice modulation and altered footage. Whereas Maverick could be seen as an allegory for the new age of cinema threatening to leave the veterans behind, Dead Reckoning Part 1 can be seen as the threat of it coming for everyone now. The film does tend to treat the situation as a Skynet-like situation, but the underlying implications for the future of the industry are hard to ignore, and I'm glad it was presented well in this film. Even though I enjoyed the film, I do have some minor issues that keep this from being as good as it could be, especially compared with the most recent installments in the franchise. The script is often pretty weak, especially when it comes to dialogue. I can forgive some of the calling cards to the series' roots, but there's just a few things that always kind of bug me. Like during a government briefing, 5 different characters take turns exposition exposition dumping, finishing each other's sentences like this is a planned class presentation. I just don't think I've ever heard any group ever talk like that, and I know it's not a big deal, but stuff like that always kind of takes me out of it. Speaking of exposition, this film is heavy on it. The first 10 minutes of the film really made me think I wasn't going to like it just based on how heavy-handed everything is laid out. It gets better later on as the film manages to break up the lulls with a solid bit of action, but every now and then the weaknesses of the actual writing manages to shine through. It does feel like the actors, specifically the returning ones, aren't given much to do emotionally. They kind of just do their deliveries and that's it, so I couldn't really find myself connecting with them in any kind of meaningful way. My final critique is kind of a broad one, which is its comparisons to the previous films. I look at the past 3 films, Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and Fallout, as a fantastic trio of films that sought to elevate the franchise to new heights and possibilities, and for the most part it succeeded. Now I can't really call this film a decline, but more of a flat line. It doesn't do a ton to build upon the series in a meaningful way, and I'm not just talking about its stunts. Crews will continue to find ways to push the envelope, but after all of these films, I think it's time to really make us give a damn about the characters. It almost makes the film feel like a filler episode, which can't be hard to argue given it's only part 1 of 2. Everyone involved can be given more to do, and I think this would help make Mission Impossible the complete package I know it could be. Despite these minor issues, I still stand by that Dead Reckoning Part 1 is leagues above most other action movies made in the past few years. It manages to mostly fly by at a breakneck speed while delivering on impeccably crafted sequences of action. While the character moments could have been stronger, there's still plenty to hold your attention. Will the IMF ever stop hiring Hunt for these big missions, politely asking him not to go rogue, even though he has a very proven track record of going rogue at the drop of a hat? Probably not, but hey, I can't lie when I say I'm looking forward to them doing it all over again in the sequel. For my rating, I'm giving this film 3.5 flip lighters out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Martini Shot. If you saw Dead Reckoning Part 1, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. And if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly. Thank you.